Before we begin, a quick note. This podcast is a space for storytelling, shared experiences, and community. The views shared are personal and not medical, legal, or professional advice. If you're navigating a situation that requires professional support, please seek guidance from a qualified expert. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and most importantly, take care of yourself. Welcome to Who Cares About Me? This podcast exists to create space for caregivers to tell their stories, the good, the hard, and the complicated. There's no judgment here, no right way to do this. Just real experiences, reflection, and connection. Each episode features a small group of caregivers sharing what this role has looked like for them. Because caregiving is not one size fits all. If you've ever found yourself caring for a parent or grandparent and quietly wondering, who's taking care of me? Who cares about me? You're in the right place. This is Who Cares About Me, a podcast created to center the voices of parental caregivers. There are moments in caregiving that don't get talked about enough. It starts with the before, when you sense something is changing, when the diagnosis becomes real, when you start Googling things at night you wish you didn't have to understand. Then there is the during. The appointments, hospital visits, exhaustion, hope, confusion, frustration, fear, resentment, connection, unconditional love. And then here is the after. The quiet, lots of paperwork, absence, and the strange feeling of not knowing who you are without the role that consumed you. This episode is about the entire arc, the before, during, and after. I'm your host, Jackie Delagard, a wife, mother, executive in the fashion industry, and primary caregiver to my 82-year-old mom who's living with PSP, a rare degenerative disease. Like many caregivers, I didn't step into this role intentionally. It found me. This podcast exists for the people who show up anyway, the ones who are doing their best without a roadmap, often without recognition, and sometimes without support. This is Who Cares About Me, and today, we're talking with someone who has come out on the other side of the after of caregiving with one parent and is navigating the journey again in the active journey with another, but this time smarter, more aware, and prepared for round two, both personally and professionally. We're talking about the emotional terrain caregivers walk long before and long after it. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy you're engaging with us today. I'm joined by Alex Fenech. Alex has lived all three chapters. She's someone who cared for their loved one through illness, walked through anticipatory grief, navigated the moment of loss, and is now living in the after while resetting and doing it all over again. Alex is also the founder and CEO of Closure, a business inspired by her own experiences, which is designed to help people prepare for and navigate both pre- and post-loss moments with clarity and confidence. As an only biological child to her father, Dick, and mom, Pat, Alex has been in this sole role of primary caregiver for over a decade. I'm so excited for Alex to share her story. Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jackie. I appreciate it.
Well, let's start with sharing with our listeners a little bit about your background, your childhood, your parents' backgrounds, how you started your family and your career, and what your main focus is now.
I'd love to. Well, I grew up, as you mentioned, as an only child in the suburbs of Syracuse, New York. My mother was a homemaker, and my father was a pharmacist, and he actually owned his own chain of independent pharmacies in the area. Growing up, this was the 70s, so it was riding your bike, your banana seat bike for hours in the neighborhood,
I love that.
running through sprinklers,
Yeah.
sleepover with seances, all that great stuff. We had a small second house in the Adirondacks. Every summer, my mother and I would move up there for the season. I took ballet and pottery lessons. My dad would come up on the weekends. We'd take out our boat. I had a whole group of friends that were my summer friends. And it was really just a wonderful existence. My father, I loved going to my father's pharmacies. He adored being a pharmacist and knowing everybody in his community. And I remember wandering the aisles, smelling every shampoo and bottle of Love's Baby Soft perfume. He sold Bonnie Bell makeup and had a magazine rack where I would sit on the floor flipping through all of them. But then when I was 11, my father moved out. It was a moment that remains very vivid for me because my parents sat me down on the couch, tell me what was happening.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know anyone at the time whose parents were split up.
Uh-huh.
That evening, strangely enough, the three of us all went to see a movie, Educating Rita, which was a
Okay.
story about a woman trying to reinvent herself while navigating a complicated marriage. And the professor in it was going through divorce. It's a very strange and ironic moment still to this day for me. But, life changed and life moves on. So we moved houses. I began splitting my time between my mother and my father, learning to adjust to two different homes and two different parents' coping styles. The divorce shut me down in expressing myself, and I would just listen to their struggles and their concerns.
Uh-huh.
I tried to keep peace in both homes. I wanted to be easy and helpful and adaptable and whatever any parent needed in that moment. If something was uncomfortable, I wouldn't bring it up, but I would do the dishes or fold the laundry, and I would redirect the energy in the room.
Uh-huh.
That pattern, stepping into it, smoothing things over, what needed to be done would become the defining part of who I am. Looking back, that's when my caregiving instincts actually launched.
Okay.
This experience now is known as a parentified child. My mother went to work for the first time, and I became what the 80s called a latchkey kid.
Yep. I know that term very well.
Yep. So there was no structure after school as
Yeah.
there is today. So I would come home after school alone and clean the house, start the dinner, do the laundry.
Uh-huh.
And so I learned to mask my emotions and mask my struggle through doing.
Yeah.
So life went on. When I was a teenager, my mother decided to get a job at Syracuse University. And after a few years of employment at Syracuse University, if your child is admitted, you can attend for free.
Oh,
And that changed
okay.
my whole life. In 1995, I graduated from Syracuse. My mom had worked on campus, so I got to see her every day. My father was a big basketball fan, so he would come up and go to games.
Uh-huh.
I made lifelong friendships at Syracuse, and I met a man who I eventually married and we had children with. And by that time, both my parents were remarried, which
Uh-huh.
I remember at the time feeling very soothed by that because they had a partner. Um, by 1995, 96, my father had begun to experience complications from type 2 diabetes and was slowly stepping away from his pharmacies. So he eventually bought a house just outside South Padre Island. And shortly after I graduated, he retired there.
Uh-huh.
But by then, I decided to move to Atlanta. My life started to take shape here. I settled, married, and had a family. When my daughter was born in 2004, I called my mom and said, "You have a granddaughter." And she immediately announced her retirement from the university. And she moved down with my stepfather in 2005.
Uh-huh.
And that became an incredible part of our life.
Yeah.
She was here babysitting so my husband and I could go out on dates.
Yeah.
And eventually, by the time my son was born in 2007, she had even taken a job at the daycare that they were both at. So
Oh,
she was there with them
wow.
every day. It
That's
was really,
amazing.
really special, Jackie.
Yeah.
Um, she became their after school nanny, their
Uh-huh.
carpool driver, their snack provider, and just constant presence in her life. My kids came up with a nickname, called her Bubbles. So that is her grandmother
I
name.
love that.
And we, including adults and friends, call her Bubbles to this
Uh-huh.
day.
That's great.
So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Okay.
Mm,
All right. Well, I'd love to explore what we're talking about in two chapters. First, starting with your dad, Dick, who, in our conversations, I was sorry to hear passed in 2016. And then the second chapter with your mom, Pat, or Bubbles, who you're caring for now. So let's start at the beginning, the moment caregiving found you. And, you know, do you remember that moment you realized your role with your dad was shifting from daughter to caregiver?
yeah, I'd love to. Um, My father and I, when he moved away, our relationship was seeing each other maybe once, twice a year. In 2014, we all went down, the kids and my husband and I, and that was the first time I saw his health significantly declining.
Okay.
Diabetic neuropathy had really damaged his feet and his legs. His mobility was very limited. He was falling frequently. He had aged significantly from this experience. And
Mhm.
so seeing that was very striking. That's the first time I really felt the shift. He always protected me in those phone conversations about really what was going on.
Right.
So I began traveling down more often. So at first, caregiving was pretty simple. It was pouring his coffee in the morning and grilling steaks for him versus him tending to the grill,
Yeah.
cleaning up the kitchen. My stepmother would go out and get her nails done and her hair done and see her friends, and I would sit with him. Little tasks that he just couldn't do comfortably.
Yeah.
But then in the fall of 2015, life was already very full for me. I had two elementary school kids, demanding executive career, and I just started an MBA program. And I was only 2 months in, and he took a fall. My father
Mhm.
took a fall, and this time he broke his femur.
Oh,
And we all know that the crisis really doesn't care much about your schedule.
sure.
So we quickly created a plan. And that plan, what I could do with the support of my job, my graduate school, and my husband, was I would come down a week a month,
Mhm.
give my stepmother respite, and handle all the logistics that came with his care. Most of that time, he was in a rehab hospital because diabetes is not kind to your body and it's not kind to healing. He
Mhm.
never fully regained mobility. And caregiving from afar carries its own weight. Every visit, you notice how much more they're declining. As every day you're away, you worry and you make up stories in your head.
Mhm.
And then when you leave, the guilt is tremendous. Most of my visits were spent with him in rehab. I would bring
Mhm.
him meals and his favorite Starbucks, and we would talk. He never lost his sharp mind. He continued to give me advice, financial decisions, reviewing my homeowner's insurance policy. I was instructed to bring that down,
Yeah.
and a lot of practical matters.
Mhm.
And I knew those conversations would be really important, and those
Yeah.
conversations would eventually end.
So it
But he
seems
always
like
wanted to teach me.
yeah, it seems like you had a really close relationship with him, even before caregiving started. Um, so when you got to this moment, did you feel prepared or did you feel like you were learning in real time?
Logistically, we were prepared. He had the documents. He told me the passwords. He made me bring his laptop to the rehab hospitals. Later, closer to the end of his life, he had by then moved back home with, round the clock care. And he gave me the greatest gift, which was preparedness in terms of his wishes, what he didn't want, what he did want, um, where everything was kept. And he was very communicative about that.
Mhm.
Um, but I wasn't prepared because you, um, then I had called the night before he passed, and the nurse told me he couldn't talk at the moment and to call back, and I didn't. And he died that night. So
Oh, I'm so
at
sorry.
that moment of feeling like I'd missed one more opportunity to talk to him was
Mhm.
devastating and haunted me for many, many years. But this caregiving quality that I had sprung into action because when I flew there, I could help my stepmother who was grieving, and I was a doer. I could get up and move through the grief and feel like I was contributing somehow.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's how I really did get through it. And,
Okay.
that stuff just came naturally to me, making decisions about what to do with his things and what to save and what to purge. And
Mhm.
um, In fact, we never really discussed what his celebration of life would look like. He had a
Okay.
couple notes, and I felt really great that we were able to put together something very meaningful. And I wrote his obituary, which is incredibly cathartic to do because you get
Mhm.
to spend a lot of time thinking about the man he was. I got to spend a lot of time thinking about the man that he was in his life. And that was a great gift to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anticipatory grief with your dad, a sense that you were already bracing for what was coming?
Yes, absolutely. Um, and I probably didn't know it on the most obvious levels, but it was there. My father, as I mentioned, gave me all our advice. I went to him for lots of decisions. Like I mentioned, he wanted to review my homeowner's insurance policy. Should I lease or buy a car? Is this a good time to invest? He would
Mhm.
give me his advice and his tips. He, I was an outlet for the things that he was always reading online, reading in the newspapers, reading his magazines and watching on TV. And that void was paralyzing to me.
Mhm.
I didn't, not that I didn't have my husband or friends or my own intuition, but not having someone to be that sounding board
Yeah.
and really be the devil's advocate. Um, I think about literally all the time, Jackie. Like I
Yeah.
say to myself, what would my father do?
Yeah.
I just sometimes don't know. Um, I just know that my life is missing that ear that I had and that point of view.
Yeah.
That was my anticipatory grief that I didn't realize what I would be missing.
Mhm.
I'd also, part of my anticipatory grief was he lived in this beautiful part of the world and he lived near the beach and we had access to water. And this was the life he always dreamed about. He retired at 55
Mhm.
and it made me sad to know when he would eventually die that that connection to that part of the world would be gone too.
Yeah.
And it was only shortly after, about 2 years later, that my stepmother had moved away.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just a sad loss. It's something that we really cherished. Maybe someday I'll go back, but I, I don't think I could do it right now.
Yeah. I want to fast forward to your mom and understanding for you whether you feel this chapter is feeling different. Um, did you have an intuition or did you notice that things were happening with your mom and that she would need that support? How does this feel a little bit different when you first started noticing that your mom needed that help?
Well, one of the differences with both of them was my father was afar. And so it was a lot of that emotional burden and coming in hot, taking over and then leaving, caregiving from afar. With my mother, she moved to Atlanta when I was still young and she was still young and she became the caregiver for my kids. And it's just been a very different experience. Our story was she lives nearby. She had moved very close to us when she moved down. And our lives had always been very intertwined, as I mentioned. For years, we had Sunday dinners with her and my stepfather. My stepfather would come over and he taught my son chess.
Mhm.
They attended lacrosse games. They got to come to birthday parties, like all the things my dad never really got to do.
Yeah.
And I was always closely involved with both of their healthcare, doctor's appointments, hospital visits. That moment suddenly something went wrong. My
Mhm.
stepfather was a bit older than her, and he had a couple, really significant health events that we were, running to the hospital to support her. And then when COVID arrived, my stepfather's health rapidly declined. Um, a part of my journey with my mom and caregiving her was supporting her when Bob came to end of life. And in 2023, we had to make a very difficult decision to put him in a nursing home
Mhm.
because my mother was 80 by then and taking care of him at home would have probably killed them both. You know, it
Yeah.
just was so, so hard on both of them. They both had their own comorbidities, and, um, and resources weren't there for 24/7 nursing. So one of the hardest moments in my life, the juxtaposition of it was, in order to keep my mother's health intact, I had to tell my stepfather, who was a veteran Marine, that he
Mhm.
wasn't going to come home and that
Yeah.
he was going to be in a nursing home, because it just it just wasn't a viable option. And that decision will stay with me forever.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of the hardest moments. I know, for her, there was a sense of relief that there were professionals taking care of him, and she could now sleep through the night, and she could now have a little more control over her rest. But
Mhm.
for him, it meant, his life was forever changed. Um, but since then, I took on taking on the medical decisions, the insurance. I took over their bills when he eventually moved into the nursing home. I would visit multiple times a week to give her a break, monitor his care. And before Bob died, he gave me, a series of instructions where to find the envelopes that had his social security card, all the details that you need when passing, things that the caregiver or the executor needs to just start that process, much like my father. And it was truly a gift. He was aware that he would eventually come to this place. And I had always had an incredible respect for Bob. But in those final moments, I realized that that was his gift to us, was to give us that preparedness and make sure we were ready.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
his death in January of 2024 really took on the next chapter, and the chapter I'm in right now with my mom,
Yeah.
which is, we have this long lifetime of caregiving with each other, right? From when
Sure.
she became a divorced woman,
Mhm.
I've seen her age and change slowly, versus my father in kind of big chunks,
Mhm.
big tranches. And this will definitely be the hardest chapter. We have
Yeah.
always been incredibly close, but that closeness shapes the present in a lot of complicated ways.
Yeah.
She was a single mom who rebuilt her life after her divorce. She had to go back to work. She bought a car. She bought a home. And she chose a career that eventually allowed me to go to college. And I care enormously for those choices and give her a huge amount of accolades for the choices that she made for my behalf.
Yeah.
And she had a huge amount of responsibility on her shoulders. And she
Mhm.
was very strong then, and she's strong now, but the time is taking a toll on some of those things for her.
Yeah. I can see why you would just do anything, move mountains for her. The support that she gave you over the years is just tremendous and just such a blessing.
Thank you. Yes. It's a little more, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Um, we both have strong opinions.
Mhm.
We spend a lot of time together. Arthritis
Mhm.
has slowly taken over her mobility.
Mhm.
So everyday tasks that once seemed effortless now require my help, a lot of planning, and a lot of patience.
Mhm.
Um, I manage her doctor's appointments and drive her most of the time.
Mhm.
People ask, how will I know what the next step is for her?
Mhm.
And with most people and most caregivers, the answer is the crisis becomes the answer. But
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what that crisis will be for my mom. And I
Yeah.
worry about that a lot.
Yeah. It sounds almost as if there's less shock and more strategy now. And, obviously the emotions are still there. Maybe they're a little different. Um, do you find yourself grieving in advance again, or are you trying to stay in the present?
I'm trying to stay in the present.
Mhm.
I'm She's 83, and I make sure we have time to call and FaceTime the kids now that they're adults and have happy hour on Fridays, and
Mhm.
try and get her to, one lacrosse game for my son before he goes off to college.
Mhm.
I don't look at it as the last, but I'm just making sure I fill the bucket as high as I can get it,
Mhm.
until eventually, some of those things drop off. But I do mourn some of the things that I don't know if she'll be able to do. Like, for example, I don't know if physically she'll be able to get to Texas next year to see my daughter graduate from college.
Yeah.
And for her 75th birthday, I took her and her um, two best friends to Ireland
Mhm.
because that was a dream for her. And I know she would love to see the Vatican. She's a devout Catholic.
Mhm.
And I'm mourning the fact that I just don't think I'm going to be able to get her there. So some
Yeah.
things are starting to drop off.
Yeah, of
And that's
course.
hard because in my hardest moments, I'm a little mad at myself that I ran out of time and I
Sure.
should have made time.
Mhm.
I think that's every caregiver's dilemma.
Absolutely. Well, I want to talk about, we're currently talking about the part 2, the during, and, you know, I want to address living inside of that caregiving role right now. And you shared with me that caregiving for you meant action, making, the home running smoothly, solving problems, handling logistics. How much of that was simply how you're wired, and how much was just a way to manage some of the heavier emotional parts that are coming up?
I'd say that it was mostly the way I'm wired
Yeah.
from an early age and avoiding the emotion around it. Even
Yeah.
to this day, I'm
Mhm.
not a heavy emotion person. I will be the first one to stand up and start cleaning if the conversation gets, a little intense or my mother needs anything, I'm there. But if she just wants to sit and chat, I'm usually trying to wash the dishes at the same time.
Right.
It's a coping mechanism for
Yeah.
me, for sure. Um, I think for me, it's the way I think I express my caregiving. I guess I
Mhm.
do wonder sometimes if it's left the impact on that person receiving it,
Yes.
um, the way I thought it was meaning to me, right?
Yes.
They just probably wanted more quality time, and I just can't I just don't do great with that. I don't know
Yeah.
what that is. I mean, sorry. I know what that is. That's my wiring, but I do know as I've gotten older, I do need to sit with the uncomfortable a little bit and just listen and talk, um, and just resist the need to stand up and do. I have to sit on my
Yes.
hands.
Yeah, I can relate. I feel like there are definitely times where I just want to get to the tactics of it and figure out another time to sit with the emotions of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I'm improving the quality of their life by the doing, but
Mhm.
I don't think that's really the truth. It's just the
Mm.
truth I tell myself sometimes.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Have you always been the primary decision maker in this role, or is there another sibling or anybody else that's doing any decision making, or is it just you?
Well, my mother has incredible girlfriends. She has 3 great girlfriends. These 4 women grew up together. 4 women had 4 daughters. The daughters are all my closest friends. And so we say 4 women had 4 daughters, 4 daughters had 4 daughters, except for my cousin Julie, who had a son.
Uh-huh.
So there's this incredible lineage and legacy among women. They're all aging very differently. They're all within 2 to 3 years.
Mhm.
She gets a lot of consultation from them. They share, you know, prescriptions, newest ailments,
Mhm.
pains. We share pictures of their handicap passes, and the daughters are really, um, a good resource. So we have I've got my whole separate text group with those
Yeah.
daughters
Uh-huh.
and our funny things, our scary moments, and our worries. That has been incredible for me. And my mother's closest friends, when they hear or see or something, they call me and make sure I knew.
Uh-huh.
There was a time where I know I wasn't intervening enough. And my mom's best friend, Amory, called me and said, you need to do more.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to face it, probably because it meant I had to really look in and see that she was struggling. It also seemed really daunting to
Uh-huh.
figure it out. But in the end, it was what I needed to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's really the care for my mom. It's those
Yeah.
women and me
Uh-huh.
and but we've always just kind of been her and I for a long time. So
Yeah.
in the end, we'll figure it out together, I think.
When you think about your dad and the during with your dad, who was that team when you were managing him?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I have um, three stepbrothers from when my father remarried. One of them lived close by,
Uh-huh.
within a couple miles.
Oh, that's
So
great. Yeah.
he was one of the first responders on so many of those urgent moments.
Mhm.
When my father would fall or, the ambulance would come or going to visit him in the hospital. He also was a healthcare professional. So he understood the area that they were in South Texas is a small community. So Steve really understood what was going on and very
Mhm.
grateful for him for that. And my stepmother was a good caregiver. She was a very good caregiver.
Mhm.
Um, and aside from the emotionally, draining part of it, she did the best that she could
Mhm.
until he passed. So that was probably a lot of the comfort I felt when I could leave.
Yeah.
Um, Unlike my mom, who was ignoring her health for so long, taking care of Bob, and her stress and blood pressure was growing.
Mhm.
She was pointing all her energy to him, and I was trying to chase her down to get her to take care of herself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a really good team out in Texas. I'm very grateful and still have relationships with my stepbrothers. And we
Mhm.
reflect you know, very warmly on what we were able to do. And my stepmother is still alive.
Mhm.
And I don't see her nearly as much, but I know her kids take good care of her as well, which is a great consolation to me and certainly for my father.
Yeah. In the midst of taking care of your dad and caring for him, did that change your understanding of him as a man, not just your father?
Definitely. There was a couple things that I I didn't really want to face.
Mhm.
One, which was he had type 2 diabetes for a long time. Now, late 70s, early 80s, that wasn't really a thing. Um, there wasn't as great a treatment as there is now, diet and exercise and that whole lifestyle. He learned and became aware of and maintained it. But by then the damage was done.
Mhm.
But he was in, the medical field adjacently as a pharmacist. So one of the realities I kind of came to terms with is that he didn't take great care of his health. And he felt bad. He was suffering from that. So I wasn't going to say anything more about that, but that was hard to watch, that he hadn't taken great care of his health until later in life, but by then the damage was done. The other thing was he was very proud and losing independence, losing his ability to drive the car and take care of the boat that he had so desired and went into retirement and achieved all his goals. When those things started slipping, he wasn't really sharing that or those emotions, but he was very sad about those things. And again, having this long distance relationship only when I got there and could see how hard it was for him and how different his life was turning out to be. 'Cause he died
Mhm.
at 74. He had a lot of years still.
Yeah.
He died way too early. And so seeing that profound sadness and regret,
Mhm.
um, even though I was an adult, it's still hard to see your parents that way. It is very heavy. And again, not really leaning into the emotional side of it. I just tried to make everything as jovial and fun and easy as possible by the doing. And I probably missed some pretty heartfelt moments with him where he really would
Mhm.
want to open up to me, but I just didn't want to have him.
There was when we were talking before this, you had mentioned a story about your dad asking you to grab stuff for him.
Yeah.
And, you turn into more of the parent, less of the child. And the act of telling your parent, no, I'm not going to do this for you. I mean, that must be so tough to make that role reversal. And I'd love for you to share that story because I think it's really an interesting aspect of caregiving when you're working, when you're caring for your parent.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it. It was one of those other really significant moments in caregiving and role reversal when he was spending all this time in rehab hospitals. Um, they are very much in charge of pain management. And because he was a pharmacist and he had had previous falls and bumps and bruises along the way, at home, he had his own prescription for some additional narcotics. And when I went to visit him once, he asked me to bring that bottle
Mhm.
up with me when I would come visit him. And I did because I wanted to accommodate it, but
Yeah.
then had a complete panic that he wasn't going to share with the doctors and the caregivers there. He had this additional medicine. And then
Yeah.
I thought, what if something happens to him or if he dies or overdoses? And so I had to tell him I wasn't going to give it to him. And yeah, that was profound because it was those decisions that I had to be the adult and I had to make the right decision,
Yeah.
um, and go against his wishes.
Yeah. It is that it is that moment where you have to sometimes, tell your parent no or put them in their place or be really stern with them. And, that could be because, their brain's just not working the way it used to. They can't think logically. And that is, I feel, I know personally I've had to have those conversations and it's tough. It's tough to tell somebody no, especially when they're in this vulnerable state. Um,
Well, and the other thing for me was ask your wife, ask a friend. Don't put me up to this. I did not want to
yeah.
be in that position. That's too heavy.
Hmm.
And he didn't mean any ill intent by asking me. He was in a lot of pain and
Sure. Yeah.
he needed it. But I didn't want to be the salt for that.
Yeah.
And, I found that with my mom recently too, is that she's gone through some health events. She needed a new hip. I didn't think the best care with one of her doctors. And so I've had to make the decision. We're going to switch doctors. We're going
Hmm.
to go look for a different outcome. I want to try and treat this differently. And that has been a huge heavy on me because what if I'm wrong? And I think she just wants someone else to help her make those decisions too.
Yeah.
So r- me being in this, because I'll assert myself anywhere to some degree. Um, but me being the person that's making these choices for her has really, really worn on me. recently.
Mhm.
And it's been one
Mhm.
of the self-awarenesses that I'm going to start to step away from and ask her, ask your girlfriends,
Mhm.
ask your primary care. Um, I, I'm not equipped for that. And I shouldn't be in that role. I put myself in that role and I just don't want to be.
And you're protecting your energy.
Yeah,
And I think you've came from a role where you put 100% of your energy into one part of your life, and now you're dealing with that again. And those are valid ways to protect your energy this time around. So,
absolutely.
a
Protecting
lot of
your energy,
lot of respect for
saving
you
yourself.
to acknowledge it and actually follow
Mhm,
through with protecting that energy because it can be very costly.
absolutely. The other way I protect my energy is um, my mother, she's slightly immobile. She can go out once in a while in her car and get her groceries. But one of my best friends said to me a couple years ago, "You are not in charge of your mom's happiness. Her happiness is not on your to-do list." And that's not to say I don't enjoy spending time with her, but another way I protect my energy is I can't worry about how she's choosing to spend her day.
Mhm.
And for a long time, I worried, was she lonely? Was she getting out enough? Should I take her shopping? And it just wasn't helping me finding the downtime and the space I needed to spend time with my family and my friends or read or whatever I need to get back to myself.
Mhm.
So having that permission from a good friend to say, she's an adult, she'll tell you when she needs you. And then me actually saying to her, I, I would love to spend time with you in these ways, but I can't do it all the time. You're either going to have to do it alone or do it with one of your friends.
Mhm.
Again, the inner child in me just needs that permission to say, I have to be able to step away and we have to be okay with that. And that has been really, really helpful for me.
Mhm.
Because otherwise I would just I will always put myself out there and keep doing, even to the extent of some of the other things in life I should be spending time with. I mean, my son's a senior in high school. This is his time right now for us. And
Right.
she totally gets that. But I needed to say that to her for her to acknowledge, of course,
Yeah.
you know, so that's a little bit how I'm wired too from my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get to part 3, the after. And obviously this is a challenging topic, so please let me know if you need a moment during Q&A as we get through this. So in the final weeks or days with your dad, did you know it was going to be his last week or days?
I did not. No, I thought I had more time. He died in May of 2016, and we had planned to go see him Father's Day.
Mhm.
And I had called. He wasn't able to come to the phone. I never called back. And then the next morning, my stepmother called. I was at work and told me he was gone. And I still
Mhm.
remember that shock.
Yeah.
It is profound in the moment to think about. The first thing you think of is, what did I forget to say? What did I forget to hear?
Mhm.
Did he know that I loved him? Did he know that I cared? Did he know that I called last night? Did he know that I never called back? I mean, just that guilt cycle was so intense. The other thing that I didn't prepare myself was what the next days looked like after I flew out there and we had a service for him. Because then I had no next trip. That was just part of my life for 9 months. I didn't
Mhm.
have any of that. And I didn't know what that looked like. My father was deeply Catholic. So I spent a lot of time going to the only place that I knew that I could talk to him, which was either church
Mhm.
or outside church. My grandparents were very Catholic. My father was an altar boy. He raised me Catholic. And that was kind of our common ground. And talking to him after he died, asking for signs, asking for answers, asking for clarity was profound. And I
Mhm.
received so much healing from that.
Yeah.
And I really think that's what will get me through when my mother passes.
Mhm.
She has shared with me what she wants and what she believes in the afterlife. And that is a great comfort to me.
Yeah.
And for anyone that has not had that conversation with a loved one, to know what that person thinks is going to happen really should, because it gives you the freedom and takes the pressure off worrying. Are they scared? What do they think is going to happen to them? Where do they think they go? And so
Mhm.
you can live in that space with them. My mother is so excited to get to heaven and see her mother again.
Yeah.
And I always joke with her, my mother is such a saint for all the things she's put up with in her life, including me,
Mhm.
that the only disappointment I will have is when I die, I won't see her because she'll be in a higher level, like the VIP, like Sky Club version, platinum medallion version of heaven. And
Yeah.
no way I'm going to get into that part of it.
Yeah.
But, I'm like, you're like in first class and I'm going to be in coach. So send me back some like extra snacks once in a
Yeah.
while. But that is like in those moments, like it just feels good to know
Yeah.
what I think is going to happen and how I can stay connected to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did what did that moment or those moments teach you about love and the love for your dad?
My father and I, from when he left when I was 11 through my teenage years, was pretty challenging. I was a
Mhm.
typical teenager. Um, I didn't like the divorce life. Like I said, no one I knew was divorced. Just going back and forth from houses. When he aged and we had those times to have some talk, I was an adult in a marriage with children. And I don't think I'm not saying I totally understood and forgave him for all that, but I could see him as a man who was
Mhm.
looking for happiness, and life happens, and he did the best from what he could do with what he had. He did the best with what he had. And they both went on to marry pretty wonderful people. And so my life benefited from that. I had gotten two new great people in my life. So some of the closure I got from it was knowing when he passed, he was someone that, even though it was hard at the time and had hardship, he did the hard things, but he sought out a life that he knew was something he needed and authentic to him, and died really with a very, very full bucket list. I mean,
Mhm.
he did a lot. Um, and I'm hoping my mother has the same thing. The one thing I've always said to my mom is, you know, we have the benefit of each other because you moved here. And
Mhm.
I never had that with dad. I got to watch his life for years, from afar, but we have each other. And I think if they didn't get divorced and find other people, I don't know if that would have ever happened. And so I think my long winded answer to your question is that depending, some people can live in grief their whole life
Yeah.
and some people could never forgive. But for me, I figured out how to make lemonade out of the lemons. I got closure. It all came full circle. I can see the benefits of their choices that was hard for me as a kid. But when he died, he was very reflective on a very well lived life.
Mhm. Got it. So when you stepped out of the caregiver role after your dad passed, did you feel relief? Did you feel untethered, lost, all of it? Did anything else change in your life after your dad passed?
I felt untethered because I had that natural instinct to pick up the phone and call him.
Sure.
I'm sure everybody has those habits. Um, Seeing that person in your life or calling that person. Graduate school was hard. I was doing, at that time, I remember accounting and finance, and he knew all that stuff from running businesses. And I didn't have anyone to run through my homework.
So if your dad could see how you're caring for your mom right now, what do you think he'd say?
I- he's very pleased. I know he is. And he's very pleased I keep in touch with my stepmother. I don't see her nearly as much, but I always make a point to call. She lives in Alabama, and I do this in honor of him. I want to make sure I keep some relationship up with my stepbrothers, some relationship up with my stepmother. He had a sister, my Aunt Kathy, who had no children and was widowed many, many years before my father passed. So we have a great relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and we talk every Tuesday night, and I go see her about every year out in Arizona. So this is the woman he raised. I'm
Yeah.
going to carry that responsibility, carry that duty,
Mm-hmm.
um, make sure other people are taken care of. Um, yeah, I know he is, I just, I can feel it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel it. I know when I'm not doing enough,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's him, maybe it's just my own guilt, but I know when I'm not doing enough and I have to do something about it. That will be the moment I decide to drive to Alabama and see my stepmother, or send something to my aunt, or book a flight.
Yeah.
Um, So it's just kind of maybe his and my rhythm together too. So
Absolutely. Well, I want to reflect on our conversation today. And I think we figure out that there are times that caregiving doesn't just find us once. And if it finds you again and you realize you're wiser because you've already lived this experience, one thing you can always fall back on and realize is that you've evolved as a person, as a human. And take that and really feel good about the moments that you've provided to your parents in these situations. I want to thank you for all that you've done and for being that caregiver. It's a very inspiring story, Alex, and I really thank you for sharing it. And I do have a couple questions that are just for you.
okay.
Um,
Thanks, Jackie. You're the best.
so, first question is, when you're running on empty, who actually looks out for you? Who is caring about you?
My girlfriends, my closest friends will keep me honest.
Mhm.
And all of us are in the caregiving role. You can't meet one woman that's in your 50s that isn't caregiving to some degree,
Yeah.
even sandwich generation.
Yeah.
So, my closest girlfriends know to ask, how's Bubbles? How are you?
Mhm.
What are you doing for yourself? Is that something someone else can take care of? The other people that help me with that are my kids, because they
Mhm.
were raised by my mother. Um, they have a great relationship with her. I'll
Yeah.
send my son over on some days when I just don't want to go and do the couple chores she wants, and he will happily go and do it.
Oh, that's lovely.
He's actually brought some of his friends that think Bubbles is hilarious. And so, she'll
That's
offer him a
great.
Diet Coke, and,
Uh-huh.
they'll do a couple heavy chores for her and get that done. And my daughter, even though she's in Texas, will text and send her
Mhm.
pictures and keep her present, in her life, in their lives.
Yeah.
And then the irony of my childhood and growing up was I eventually ended up getting divorced.
Mhm.
Very different from my parents, very amicably. There is a great amount of love and admiration for my ex-husband and his family. And
Mhm.
I am remarried, and my husband understands me to a T and
Mhm.
can read me. And I can lean on him to be my caregiver when I need that
Oh,
kind of support.
yeah.
And my ex-husband is still very close to my mom and lives slightly closer. So if something's going on or if I'm out of town, I'll text him and he'll run over
Mhm.
and take care of her. So I have
Yeah.
this incredible group of people that love is exchanged
Mhm.
in the asking and in the doing.
Yes.
And I hope a lot of people do. I really hope
Yeah.
that's what it's about. And I keep my girlfriends honest with their caregiving too.
Yeah.
And the great thing about the girlfriends that I have is it's frustrating. And I get mad and I get sad. I get mad because I'm sad
Mhm.
that, you know, she doesn't get to do the things that she wants to do, that my mother doesn't have the independence she used to have, that she expresses some of her regrets. And it's hard to hear. One story about to the testament of this team that I have of people in my life that helped me is last summer, I was in Lisbon for the month with my daughter, and it was my mother's birthday.
Uh-huh.
And we weren't around to celebrate it. So my ex-husband, my current husband, and my son all threw my mother a birthday party.
Oh,
They cooked for
wow.
her and gave her a present and got her a cake. And I'm so lucky that I have these
Yeah.
people in my life
Oh, that's so
that
beautiful.
can do this for her and make
Yeah.
her feel special and, come together for stuff like
Yeah.
this. They're just,
Yeah.
and I'm showing my children what it's like to, this isn't a typical situation with a Doris family, but this is what it looks like. And
Yeah.
this is how relationships can stay and be forged and get better. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I know caregiving is about taking time and deep breaths and all these other things, but sometimes it's just a really long string of curse words
Yeah.
to a friend on the phone. It's
Well, I love the
really helpful.
community that you've built. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, what's one small thing that makes your caregiving day lighter? Hobby, something that you watch on TV, nice martini. What is that one thing that just makes your day better?
My mother has always said her favorite part of the day when she come home from working was taking off her bra and getting into bed. And I got to tell you, Jackie, it's probably mine too now. I'm almost 53. I love getting into my bed and laying down. And nowadays, I don't really spend a lot of time on social media. It's reading. My
Yeah.
mother was a voracious reader. Her eyes have not allowed her to keep up as much as possible. But I think I learned that from her.
Yeah.
Just get in bed, alone time, and reading has been really, really great.
Absolutely. Last question. What would you say to another caregiver listening right now that is in your same boat?
It's going to go on longer than you think. It is okay to be mad sometimes because there's so many emotions that come with it. What life you weren't able to do because you're caregiving, what life they weren't able to achieve because their health declined. What are the lessons that you can pull forward and the gifts that you get from it? How can you teach your children about caregiving and just
Mhm.
being a great human and being there for people? Even caregiving could be caregiving to a stranger.
Yeah.
What are those instances where you can really make a human connection? And I'm grateful that I get to do it, even though sometimes it's challenging. Um, and I know that caregiving, even with siblings, is not easy. So every situation is just it's unique. And
Yeah.
give yourself grace.
Yes.
Just give yourself and that aging person grace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we wrap up, I'd love for you to talk about your business, Closure, and the services you provide for folks navigating both pre and post loss moments. So I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. I would love to. Thank you. One of the biggest lessons I learned out of this was I understand, I like to do the doing, and experiencing this in a couple different ways, and then seeing friends and family. When my former father-in-law passed away, he was not prepared. We are still trying to figure it out 2.5 years later. So I had an opportunity in 2024 to change careers. I believe it was my father and divine intervention that put me at the right place at the right time, sit next to a woman that was doing post-loss work. And it's a category that really nobody knows about. There's death doulas, there's hospice care, there's all sorts in the aging space that could make your life maybe more physically or emotionally comfortable. But there's really not a space yet for the administrative and the logistical needs for caregivers and eventually executors. So I met this woman. She shared her card. I left that event and said, this is absolutely my destiny and my calling. And so I went on to become certified in a program called PALS, Professionals of After Loss Services. And it's really being there for the executor once a death has occurred to help go through the logistical process in the right order, take that pressure and burden so that family can grieve and help close an estate, whether that is multiple elements or a house and a car or just personal effects. But what over the last 1.5 years I've become very passionate about is pushing this message to adult children to talk to their parents and to talk to their spouse about preparing and having your documents organized for when the inevitable happens. Because we carry our life around in our phone, in our head, in our laptop, and we know all the passwords and the portals and the pet care.
Yep.
But sometimes life catches up to us. And if you're gone and if you haven't communicated those important things that made your life run so smoothly, you leave a mess and you leave a lot of heartbreak and you leave some other feelings besides grief. You know, I never want anyone to be in a position of being resentful towards someone that passed away because they didn't spend the time putting these things down. You don't want your loved ones guessing what your intentions were with your remains or the art on your wall, or having to have discussions and pay lawyers to get into accounts that you didn't leave passwords for. So my business is called Closure. That side of the pre-preparedness side is called Closure Club. I work with people, usually adult children, to organize their life, help ask the questions to organize their parents' life. So you can spend more time reflecting on the present and not having to guess when the time comes and they pass.
Well, I love this service and the idea of it. I think it's so needed. So I hope those of you who are listening, check it out. We'll have some information and details in the notes and on the website. And thank you so much, Alex. I really, really appreciate your time and your openness with today's topic, which was really heavy. And I also thank you for your strength to discuss this. It really means a lot.
I appreciate you, Jackie, and finding people to share these stories and opening an avenue for caregivers just like yourself and your family. We're everywhere.
Yeah.
Just doing it because
absolutely
you have to. It's just what you have to do.
Well, caregiving is not one moment. It's an arc. And we talked a lot about that arc today, the before, where fear quietly sets in, the during, where love and labor collide, and then the after, where silence can feel even louder than hospital machines sometimes. But if you're walking through anticipatory grief right now, if you're in the thick of it, if you're sitting in the after wondering, who are you now? What's your identity? Just know you are not alone. Caregiving changes all of us. It reshapes us. And even when the role ends, the love does not. So thank you again, Alex. And please visit closureclub.com for more information on the services that Alex offers. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Take care. You can listen and subscribe to Who Cares About Me wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to follow, connect with us, check out resources, or share your story, head to Who Cares About Me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Subscribe on Substack and YouTube, and like, or visit whocaresaboutmepodcast.com. Who Cares About Me is hosted and produced by me, Jackie Delagard. Clarence Steele is our editor and producer, and also created our theme music. And graphics created by Jonathan Delagard of Hollis Arts, LLC.